replay viewers. Welcome to day 7 of my 21-day scoping challenge to myself. Hi Mandy. I'm sorry you couldn't be here live if you're viewing the replay, but you can still, if you're viewing the app, give hearts. Patrice, that's you, right? Did I get your name right this time? Elaine, hi, how are you doing? Okay, I'm going to flip around. This is the reason you see right here, hi Helen, that I completely forgot to scope yesterday because I've been diving head first, hi Jessica, into my taxes. Okay, I'm going to flip around. Okay, keeping it real, this is a 100% no makeup, haven't even taken a shower yet today because I am, hi Kimberly, trying to get these done. So I thought, hey, if I'm in the middle of them, I might as well scope about them today. So, not an exciting topic, but a necessary topic, right? We have to deal with bookkeeping and we have to deal with taxes when we own a business. So, a lot of times, hi Christine, it's not a favorite thing of creatives. And so, it's good to talk about, share some ideas about the things that we like and work for us. Oh, thanks, Mandy. I'm going to tell you some things that I use and some things I try to do to stay on top of it. And then I would love it if you shared in the comments too some things that you like to do. Hello, Russellella. So, the numbers are not an issue with me. I love math. I actually beat out every boy in my class for the math award in high school, okay? Love the numbers. I've done bookkeeping for other businesses. Hi, Amy. So that's not the issue. I'm not afraid of them. It's the whole procrastination thing that I struggle with. So that is one reason I have done some things to try to help with the procrastination, because I know that that sinks me. Like the very first year I did my taxes and I literally waited until the end of the year to get everything together. It was awful. So one thing that I have done, and I know that a few of you on here have done the same thing to help with that procrastination, is I use Godaddy Bookkeeping. So Godaddy syncs with your Etsy shop and it syncs with PayPal if you still have standalone PayPal, or if you take sales off of Etsy and yeah, if you take sales from off of Etsy and you use PayPal as a payment processor, then those all get pulled in and synced with Godaddy on a consistent basis. So since that's all being pulled in, it takes a lot of the manual bookkeeping entry out of the picture. You just need to be checking to see that things are categorized correctly and that there's no duplicate expenses or income and that kind of thing. Mandy, I want to talk about CraftyBase because I saw they just added PayPal integration and I know they have Etsy. I tried CraftyBase a few years ago when it was really just inventory management, and now that they're doing more bookkeeping stuff, I'm kind of like, I wonder if I should switch, but I'm right at the point where I need to pay for the next year of GoDaddy, so I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I want to chat about how you like it. So with GoDaddy, what I try to do is at least once a month, get on there and check and make sure that my categories are correct. So sometimes there will be a purchase that I make and it doesn't know how to categorize it because maybe I haven't purchased from there before, or for example, Amazon. With duplicates is, and it didn't even happen until last year, I don't think. And I think it's because I started paying my Etsy bill with my PayPal debit card and all the fees from Etsy and categorizing those. And then when I go to pay my bill, it's also categorizing that as a payment. But those fees have already been classified, have already been pulled in on an individual basis. So if I call paying my bill another expense, then it's duplicating those fees and that messes everything up. So that's the only thing I've had to do. Hi Dan. Is I have had to go in and find those payments that I make with my PayPal debit card in GoDaddy and classify them as, hide it as duplicate expenses so that my fees are not being recorded twice. Okay. But I have had no other issues with that. Helen, I know that you've had a couple of things with GoDaddy, but I think you got those figured out as well. So usually you can kind of figure out what's going on, and if you don't, you can open a ticket with them. But I really recommend them, and I think you can usually find a coupon code out there. I think last year when I renewed, I did, and I ended up paying maybe $93 something for the year. GoDaddy is not a blog site. GoDaddy is mostly known for providing domain names and domain hosting, but Outright is the name that the bookkeeping program used to be, and then GoDaddy bought it out a few years ago, and so it's just called GoDaddy Bookkeeping. There are a couple of craft stores you shop at, and those transactions weren't imported. Were those ones that you used your PayPal card with, Helen? So that is, you just sign up. If you Google GoDaddy Bookkeeping, or you can look on MakerySpace.com, your business debit card, your personal business debit card, because you have your bank account connected, I'm guessing then, to your GoDaddy account. If you look on MakerySpace.com under resources, then you will see some of my favorite resources that I use, and there'll be a link to the GoDaddy Bookkeeping there. It says it's an affiliate link, but I can't find where there's an affiliate program anymore specifically for the bookkeeping program, so I don't even think it is right now. So you guys are coming in and out a lot. Is my connection kind of bad? Am I freezing? There's a few people I noticed have had to cycle in and out. So I apologize if the connection is bad. Okay. I tried to turn off Wi-Fi on all the other devices in my house, but it doesn't always work. So another thing that I do is once I'm finished double checking that month, I just take my receipts and I staple them all together by month and file them so that I have them all together, and so that I know that they've all been entered as well. So that's another thing that you might consider doing. And you don't want to, when you do your bookkeeping, even if you don't purchase a bookkeeping program, like maybe your shop isn't big enough that you feel like you can justify the cost. Oh, that's a really good idea, Amy. I haven't tried it that way. So through the GoDaddy app, you can actually take a picture of your receipt and link it to the transaction. I love that. I am going to try that. Thank you for letting us know. I don't ever do much with the app, so I'm really glad to know that. Still file image of the picture on there. That is fantastic, because then you could refer to it so much easier if you need to look something up. Great ideas, ladies. So even if you don't want to invest in a bookkeeping program, and I think Wave is still has a free version, but I'm not sure how functional it is as far as importing from Etsy or other places, but it's something worth checking into. But some people just use Excel sheets, which works great. I know Jason Malnick with Etsypreneurship in his Etsy shop, he has a bookkeeping Excel-based program that I've heard is really, really good. So that's something else you could consider. But don't rely on just your Etsy CSV that you download from the site, because you really want to check it against your own records, and obviously your expenses aren't on there. I think I use the middle one, Jessica, because I don't need to send invoices, and there was one other thing, one other level of functionality I didn't need for, I think it was automatic invoices at the highest level has, and I don't need that. But you need to keep really good records, and not just, a lot of people at the end of the year, I think they do all send invoices, but maybe the last one is automated invoices or something. A lot of people I see in Etsy groups, and at the end of the year, they're like, I need to do my taxes, and I don't know where to find how much I made and all this. Well, the Etsy CSV will help you with your income from shipping and transactions, and it will help you with your fees, but it's not going to help you with your expenses. So you really need to have a system for tracking all of that stuff. And definitely do not rely on your Etsy stats for any numbers, because your Etsy stats in revenue, that only shows the actual sale amount of your items. It does not show shipping, and it also does not show returns. So you're going to really be messed up if you just look at revenue on there. And so a lot of people are confused about the shipping portion. Like, people will say, well, I don't want my shipping included because shipping is an expense. Shipping is income until you pay for postage and you buy supplies. Yes, you can use it for 2015, Jessica. You can input things from last year. Now, Etsy will pull in a certain time period from direct checkout. I'm not sure that it's an entire year. You're going to have to look into that. as far as the automatic import. Otherwise, I believe you can download your CSV and upload it to Godaddy Bookkeeping, and I think it will get that information from there. Just won't be as neat and clean as the import feature. So with the shipping income, you can only expense out on your Schedule C what you actually pay for in postage and in your shipping supplies, like your bubble mailers, your tissue paper, your gift bags, your twine, your stickers, whatever, related expenses. But let's say I charge $5 flat rate shipping, but it costs me $3 to mail, and my supplies cost me 75 cents. I'm actually making $1.25 profit on that shipping, and that has to be classified as income, and it has to be taxed on our income tax return. So just know that you need to put all of your income from the items themselves plus the income from shipping into your gross income on your Schedule C, and then on another line you'll have a place to deduct those shipping expenses, which would be postage plus your supplies. Okay, so don't make that mistake. As far as inventory, I'm really bad about tracking inventory as I go. I tend at the end of the year to kind of do it all. So what I did this year, I'll show you my sheets. Once all my orders placed through December 31st, I had all the fabric cut for them and the zippers pulled. I went through and I measured the fabric I had left and counted my zippers and all of that so that I could count it as inventory. Now, there is a thing with the IRS where they allow businesses that make under a certain amount in sales not to have to keep inventory, even though you would normally have to. So normally if you're in retail, you have to inventory your made products and your supplies for making your products. But under a certain amount, you don't have to. Now, I started out doing it this way, so I have continued with this combination method. I do a combination accrual and cash method. So I do track my inventory. I prefer, when you don't track an inventory, you can only deduct your supplies that you purchase in, there's some rules. You can't deduct them like necessarily immediately, and you have to only deduct what you used in that year. So there's a little bit more work that you need to do there. So I'm not an accountant, so I don't want to give you any advice specifically about that, but definitely look into it. If you want to stick with the cash method of accounting because you make under a certain amount, get some good counsel on that from an accountant and how to do that. But if you do want to track your inventory, which I recommend if you are willing to take the time, it really is a better way to keep track of your business. What I did is I printed off on Flickr, I have all my fabric swatches of the fabrics that I've carried, and I printed off the entire thing so I could actually literally write on each fabric swatch how much I had left, how much I paid for it, and then figure out the value of it in inventory, what was left at the end of the year. So a lot of these are crossed off because they're fabrics I don't have anymore, but I wrote how many yards, how much I paid at the time, and what the value is, so that I could keep track of all that. And then I went through and counted, my swivel hooks that I use, my thread, my Velcro dots, a few other things that I use in the actual that are cost of goods sold because they go into the finished product themselves, so that I could track my inventory. So like I said, it's not ideal to wait to the end of the year to do it, but I just have not been disciplined enough to use a system like MakerySpace where I am tracking it every time I order, adding to my inventory. But now that I have a really, a fresh count from like the beginning of January, it might be worth me doing because I'm not that far into the year and I haven't done a whole lot of ordering since then. So, Mandy, are you still on here to give a little feedback about thread usage? Yeah, because technically it goes into the finished product. So I do go by like how much, it's kind of an estimate, how much of a spool I have left of thread. And I use only a few basic colors, so that makes it a lot easier. I don't use a whole ton of different colors. But yeah, technically that does go into the finished product, so it's a cost of goods sold, which is helpful because then you can count it as that as far as the kind of expense it is. But Mandy, how long have you been using MakerySpace? I'm really curious. And are you using it for your bookkeeping as well as your inventory management? About a month. Okay. Yeah, Jessica, that's one thing that inventory is, it's really just not fun to do. So it's kind of a necessary evil of having a handmade business. Yeah, one thing I noticed about CraftyBase is it does cost more than Godaddy Bookkeeping. Now the functionality is greater because you have the whole inventory piece of it, which you don't have with Godaddy. But I didn't even pay attention to CraftyBase for a long time because the bookkeeping part was not really developed. It wasn't functional for that. So now I'm really considering looking into it. I might try the free trial and see how it goes, and then I'll report back on what I think as far as using it for both things. But GoDaddy has just been so easy. It's just really simple for even someone who doesn't have a whole lot of bookkeeping experience to keep track of things. And then at the end, you can print out all of the figures you need for Schedule C. You can print out your profit and loss, the summary of your income and expenses, and you can get a really good visual for that. And then each month you can see what your profit was. You see your income and your expenses, and you know, so you can track that on a monthly basis and kind of keep track of how your business is going. Yeah, the inventory, this is for federal income taxes I'm talking about. So for your 1040, for filling out Schedule C, that is the part I'm talking about with inventory. But the IRS, like I said, does have that allowance for people who make under a certain amount in a year. So I'm sure that most of us qualify for that. I mean, it's a pretty high amount of money. So I think most of us would qualify for being able to just use the cash basis. But like I said, you have to be careful. If you make a purchase of supplies that fall under cost of goods, like let's say it's fabric or paper or whatever, but you don't use it all by the end of the year, you think that you have to only expense what you used. Whereas if you use the accrual method, when the expense happens, that's when it's counted, and when the sale happens, that's when it's counted, not when you're paid, not when you pay, not when you use it up. So it's a totally different method. That's why I really recommend talking to an accountant about that part. But my main tips are to keep on top of it. Don't wait until halfway through the year, the end of the year, to get caught up. Keep it up on a monthly basis, and you will just be able to just free that area of your brain and not have to worry about it and not feel the weight of it, because I know what it feels like to feel the weight of waiting till the last minute to get it all taken care of. Any questions? Okay, don't forget, if you have any suggestions for what you like, you're welcome, Jessica. Any suggestions for anything you'd like me to cover in one of these scopes, please go to MakerySpace.com/scope. And if you scroll down a bit past, yes, I'll talk about sales tax, you bet. If you scroll down a bit past the list of my scopes and the links, you'll see a little thing you can fill out for if you have any suggestions for a topic that you would like me to cover or a question you have. So Amy asked about sales tax and tracking it in GoDaddy. From the sales on Etsy, when that is collected from the sale, it gets classified as sales tax collected. So that makes it pretty easy. But I know, Amy, you have lots of different sales channels. So I don't know how much, you probably have to input a lot manually, and it doesn't import. So for those things you do manually, you should be able to do a split transaction and have your sales amount, a line for that, a line for sales tax collected, and a line for shipping, if that applies. And then that will track it. GoDaddy, one thing I don't like is when you print off your reports at the end of the year, they classify sales tax as an expense. It's not an expense. It's just kind of an accounts receivable and payable thing. It's just a rotating flow-through type of thing. And so, yeah, GoDaddy breaks down all the different fees. Yep, all completely separately. So I don't know why they do it that way. So I end up having to kind of cross things off. Like when I print out my final report for the year, I have to tweak the expenses a bit because sales tax is not an expense. I'm not paying that out of my pocket unless I haven't collected enough, and then it's an expense because I'm paying the balance. But yeah, that's another thing I should talk about is on GoDaddy, you can do those split transactions. When it first came out, you couldn't. You could just put in the whole amount of the sale, like if you were purchasing something, and so that was kind of a pain that you couldn't put in shipping separately and you couldn't put in sales tax. because I'm guessing it's this way in most states, but I get to take a deduction when I do my sales tax return at the end of the year. I take a deduction for sales tax that I have had to pay at a store on materials that I'm going to turn around and use in my product. So cost of goods sold, and then sell, because sales tax, I already paid it, and then I'm going to collect sales tax on it, and that's double taxing. So I get to take a deduction for that. So now if I make a purchase like from Joann's in town, I can do a line for what I purchased, a line for the sales tax I paid at the source, and then that separates it out so I can see that when I go to do my excise tax return at the end of the year. I can see how much what the gross amount of the purchase price was that I had to pay tax on when I bought it. Now there are some places like fabric.com, they have my sales tax permit on file, so they don't charge me sales tax when I purchase fabric from them. So if you purchase from a place like that, ask if they have a way of doing that so that if you turn in your sales tax permit to them, they will put it in their system to not charge you sales tax, and you won't have to worry about getting that taken care of and getting a credit on your excise tax return. Hobby Lobby. Yeah, if you purchase from Hobby Lobby and you pay sales tax and those are supplies that you use in your finished product, then you would do a split transaction and put like scrapbooking paper and the cost of it and then sales tax paid at source. But you'd put them both in cost of goods sold, but you're tracking them separately so that you can do a search and see, okay, where did I pay sales tax at the source? And you can visually see, okay, I paid it on $10. And so then you're going to use that on your excise tax return when you are turning in your sales tax at the end of the year. Any other questions? Okay, thanks friends for being with me today. I will see you back here tomorrow around the same time, 10:30 Pacific. If the product isn't sold within your state, no, because you should not be paying sales tax if you bought it from out of state, like online. And so I do not take any sort of deduction for those because I've just paid the straight price and maybe shipping. And then shipping just, ends up being part of the expense of purchasing your supplies for your products. All right, I'll see you back here about 10:30 tomorrow morning, and I hope you have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.